Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, it is I am the one and only Pac-Man here once again, and I am back for the likes of the Mexi Toys videos. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back for some more of Let's Play of Pac-Man World Re-Pac for the PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, Xbox One, Xbox Series X/S, PC Steam, and finally, of course, the Nintendo Switch. So, last time, we've essentially managed able to complete every single levels in terms of the forms of the space area. So as a result, we actually did that pretty nicely, all things considered. Especially now we're on to the halfway point of the game right now, meaning about the fact that we've only got about 3 more worlds to go before we're able to wrap things up everything in terms of Pac-Man World Re-Pac. So today, for this video, is that we're going to be about to be experiencing the 4th world in Pac-Man World Re-Pac. That's what appears to be the Funhouse area. So as a result, to be expected about the fact that the game starts to get a bit difficult, but I will say it's nowhere near as hard or difficult compared to the forms of how it does it from the original version. So, because of the forms of that particular flooded jump system, because as a result of that kind of stuff though, you should be able to actually conquer certain levels no problem. So, anyway, so let's begin, shall we? So, for those of you probably wondering about the fact that I was originally trying to able to discuss upon certain announcements they've actually revealed so far, in terms of not only from the likes of the forms of Ubisoft Forward, but also with the forms of Capcom Showcase as well. But unfortunately though, I don't think I can probably mention about that today. But I'm sure that Sonic will be able to actually mention more about it until when he goes back onto Sonic Frontiers until tomorrow. So because of this though, yeah, today's date of course here is the 13th of June today, in this case in 2023 today. So, at the very least, I could possibly try to able to explain some few bits here and there, to able to actually discuss upon the forms of the news and updates and stuff like that. But relatively speaking though, about the fact that I can't believe by saying this, is about the fact that we're actually getting very close to the halfway point in terms of June already. Because as a result, we're actually getting quite close towards the forms of not only at the end of the first half of the year, but also until when it gets to the point it will start to begin the second half in terms of 2023. So at the very least though, about the fact that we can pretty much gonna have to save that conversation until in the future. So because of that though, there's one thing about the fact, I suppose, that Sonic has totally forgot to mention about since in yesterday's Sonic Frontiers playthrough, and because of this though, about the fact that I can assure you, much like the forms of Final Fantasy VII Remake for the PlayStation 4 and possibly the PlayStation 5 version as well, although I may be wrong, but basically it's about the fact that Final Fantasy VII Rebirth that's about to be releasing and during at some point in early next year in 2024. I can assure you it will once again contain 2 discs, and it's going to be only exclusive to PlayStation 5, as far as we already know about that, because obviously with the graphics and stuff like that, and as well as from that, it will not be possible to able to be released on PlayStation 4 after all, just because of all that, well, internal storage as far as this is concerned. So, although I'm assuming for this point, so, but I digress. So, the next thing I want to mention though, is that apparently though, there's going to be a new character that's going to be introduced during the course of the upcoming Sonic Superstars game, and that's what appears to be for that this particular character that does have an armor on it. So as a result of that kind of stuff though, apparently it does have its name, and because of that though, his name was Trip, which I will say, I think it's actually kind of a lame character's name, by the way, which I'll be perfectly honest here, I think that was the only weakest aspect when it comes to that particular new character's introduction. But either way though, I'm sure we're able to find out some more details about that until when the game comes out for reals, until by the end of 2023, so I guess that probably explains it. So, and apparently a lot of people seem to think about the fact that Sonic Superstars is basically like the equivalent to New Super Mario Bros. Wii, just because of the 4-player co-op aspect. In addition to that though, you experience 8 zones, apparently, with all original zones, not so much rehash zones, thankfully. in addition to that, about the fact that I pursue it to you, the might still able to come across into 2 acts per zone, similar to the forms of how it does it for Sonic the Hedgehog 3 and Knuckles, alongside with the forms of Sonic Mania. So even then though, that we'll find out until whenever that game comes out. So but either way, but I'm curious to know about the fact that what Trip is gonna be like. So anyway, so let's get on with the forms of that continuation discussion. In terms of the forms of, you know, the Xbox Game Showcase, they've obviously announced quite a number of things. I'm sure that Sonic has already mentioned about quite a few announcements since yesterday, but I'll mention about the rest of it though. The next game they did revealed, which appears to be by the forms of Tower Born, so as a result it's going to be releasing and doing at some point in next year in 2024. And as we expected, it's going to be releasing on the next generation of consoles, presumably. And the next game after that, which appears to be by the forms of Clockwork Revolution, which, I will admit, that name of the game is very cool looking, I'm not gonna lie. Although, despite the fact that it requires a lot of time travel aspect, for what I've noticed on the actual gameplay footage itself. But, as far as I'm aware, we're not exactly sure when that game is going to be releasing on, but it did say about the fact that it's coming in due time. Get it? Because of time travel aspect and all that stuff, as well as, you know, involves around, you know, clock and stuff like that. So, yeah, I usually just get that pun intended, so I have no idea why I say things for this point right there, because I know for a fact that it's been about 5 days ago since we've last played this for sure, because obviously about the fact that we just want to able to get all these stuff organized for the sake of the forms of trying to able to discuss something. Discuss on things, as far as what I meant to say. And also, I don't suppose if you noticed about the fact that once again, I think the actual temperature is actually getting ridiculously hot these days. Although, I'm sure I'll get used to it though, don't worry. So, anyway, so the next thing I want to mention though, is that apparently though, Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart has officially became 2 years old since in 2021, which it was used to be exclusive to the PlayStation 5, but then as it turns out that we've now got the PC release now, so because of that though, but as to be expected it's going to be releasing at some point next month, presumably, so yeah, you probably get the gist of that particular release in mind. So yeah, I can't even believe it's been 2 years ago since, you know, Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart has came out, since on the PlayStation 5 that was usually going to be exclusive during that time. But as I said before, we're about to be getting a PC release now, so I suppose the final announcement, in terms of the forms of, well, in addition to having ourselves a full direct based off from Starfield, but as it turns out about the fact that we're actually going to be getting the next color variation of the Xbox Series S, and this time what appears to be by the forms of a black color, to be more specifically, carbon black. So as a result, in addition to having ourselves a different color, but also we get ourselves an expansive external storage, which as a result is now going to be 1 terabyte. So it certainly is a lot more better than the forms of how it does it for the likes of, let's just say, 512 gigabytes that it did originally came from the likes of 2020. But as it turns out about the fact that I think the next color variation of the Xbox Series S, it does manage to contain a release date, and it's going to be releasing at some point in the beginning of September. To be more specifically, the 1st of September. So even then though, that seems quite of a good upgrade, especially noticeable about the fact that in addition to having ourselves the next color of Xbox Series S. So as a result for that kind of stuff though, I'm pretty sure about the fact that I'm guessing that a lot of people might tend to able to get the black variation of that particular Xbox Series S now, because of the forms of that, you know, improvement gigabyte storage and stuff like that. So yeah, you probably get the gist of it though, so. But yeah, aside from all that stuff though, is about the fact that recently, though I found out about the fact that, apparently though, that recently Marvel has decided able to change the actual film's title's name, when it comes to the films of at some point in 2024, that, actually I think I'll explain more now in a second, because, there's actually a new game has just recently announced, and that's what appears to be Rhythm Racer Crash Course Builder, that has just been announced for the Nintendo Switch, apparently, which I've never actually heard about it, But as a result for that kind of stuff, though, it's not my cup of tea. So even then, though, I'm biased, I guess, you know. And as far as I'm aware, the next fighting game is going to be announced, and that's what appears to be Diesel Legacy. The Blazing Age is going to be coming onto the Nintendo Switch for sure. And for what I've noticed about the fact that with that particular game called Mega Man Battle Network 6, apparently that, usually relatively speaking, for that particular game, is actually the ending conclusion of the actual Mega Man Battle Network series. To be more specifically, endings off in Mega Man Battle Network 6. Because as a result for that kind of stuff, though, I'm guessing it's probably because of the storytelling or something like that. Although I may be wrong, because it's been a very long time since I actually looked upon something related to the forms of Mega Man Battle Network series. Well, mind you, I still haven't get a chance to play those for the sake of time, just because I'm not exactly great at these types of games like that, because I'm more into the forms of not only classic Mega Man, but also with the forms of Mega Man X recently, and exponentially I'll try out the Zero series as well as the Duology DS games as well in the future to, God knows, for doing Let's Plays of those now, because obviously we now have the ability to able to play, you know, ZX and ZX Advent from, you know, Nintendo Switch or PS4 or Xbox One versions, so at the very least we don't have to worry about trying to get the actual DS capture footage or potentially speaking the DS capture card to able to actually capture some footage for those two games combined, presumably. So, but either way, although despite the fact that it does have a lack of touchscreen functionality, unlike the forms of how it does it on the DS version, that's for sure, when it comes to two games combined. So, but I digress. So, in terms of the forms of what's going to be coming until tomorrow, obviously about the fact that the next Mario Kart Tour event is going to be Mario vs. Luigi Tour, which, yeah, it seems about the fact that I'm still not a big fan of the forms of the Team Rally system, as you probably already noticed at this point, because obviously with the, you know what I'm saying, with the random luck factor to it. In addition to that, though, it's just about the fact that I just hate the randomness involved, and especially noticeable about the fact that every time when my team is doing pretty well, but then the next day after that, we pretty much got screwed because of the forms of how the fact that, well, that happened to me back in the forms of in last year, like roughly in 2022, that we're doing pretty well in Team Bowser on the forms of almost towards the end of that tour. But then when I woke up in the next morning, we got screwed over by huge margin of points. Because obviously Team Peach managed to take over. Because of that though, yeah, I just have no idea why I somehow managed able to no longer hyped about the Team Rally system in, you know what I'm saying, with the forms of Mario Kart Tour. Because it does kind of reminds me of a similar problem I have with the forms of Team Sonic Racing when it comes to team racing itself. Because obviously it requires so much of the teamwork, and on top of all that stuff though, it does show us a lot of random luck-based elements to it though, at times. But even then though, I am still not a big fan of that concept, so. And as far as I did manage to find out, that the Mario vs. Luigi Tour was actually the 98th tour so far, for the sake of the forms of Mario Kart Tour so far. And I think, relatively speaking, that our predictions might be a little bit correct. That I can assure you that the 100th tour is going to take place at some point in July. So, at some form or another, it's about the fact that obviously the next one after the Mario vs. Luigi Tour, considering that will be the 98th tour. So, expecting about the fact that I'm not exactly sure what 99th tour will be like, but I'm sure that we'll explain more details about that. Enjoying at some point until likely also in the next couple of weeks or so, because obviously about the fact that we're still on almost getting close to the middle portion of June already. So, but either way, that must have been saying something, so. Now, I suppose there's one thing I want to point out, is that all it needs left now, in terms of the forms of gaming announcements, at least for now anyway, which appears to be, of course, you know exactly what I'm talking about, is the Nintendo Direct. Now, apparently that some reporters did say that it's going to take place in next month until July, so it's going to be a bit of a change of pace. compared to the films of how it does it from the likes of in the past years. Because normally in the past years, obviously we've always got ourselves the Nintendo Direct in every single June's. Well, except with the films of 2020, because obviously 2020 is a lockdown year, and on top of all that stuff, there is a lot of worse disasters during that time. But as a result of that kind of stuff, though, let's not talk about that right now, because obviously, about the fact, no matter what though, that recently, for those of you who lived in North America, during today anyway, that the Super Mario Bros. Movie has recently came out today in North America. So I'm sure enough though that a lot of people were expected to be able to rewatch that film countless amount of times, either on DVD or Blu-ray, and even nowadays 4K quality. So as a result, I'm sure that you might be able to enjoy the film loads of times. And apparently though, maybe they might start to work on the sequel eventually at some point in the future though. I'm not exactly sure when exactly, but I'm sure it will be pretty interesting all things considered. So, but either way, it seems to be more specifically also that I think, relatively speaking, they might be able to actually start working on the Legend of Zelda movie at some point in the future. So that'll be interesting though, especially noticeable about the fact that I'm pretty sure that some interviewers did say that maybe if there's a possibility about the fact that maybe Illumination alongside with Universal and Nintendo might work on The Legend of Zelda. But again, we shall see what happens until eventually at some point, especially noticeable it's a bit early to discuss on this right now, because obviously about the fact no matter what though, I felt it was a little bit weird about the fact no matter what though, that the next Pixar movie called Elemental, that I think it will continue that tradition about the fact that when it comes to the films of between America's release compared to the UK's release, follows the same trend. Because as a result, that you remember about the fact that back in the day, that usually America regions always get certain films first before we got it. Well, as a result, it continues that in Elemental. So as a result, I can assure you, I think we're actually getting pretty close until the North American's release of Elemental is about to be came into its public release in America. So, relatively speaking, I think they've only got 3 days to go. So, as a result, it might be seems a little bit more promising as far as this is concerned. Now, as far as the UK version is concerned, I almost assume about the fact that it's going to be releasing at some point in exactly the same time as the American version, but as it turns out it's going to be delayed and during at some point on July. So it's going to be on, I would say, on the 7th of July. So to make it a little bit more up for the sake of the films of Lucky Sevens, well, except with the actual year number, because obviously it takes place in 2023. So yeah, you probably get the gist of it though. So, but at least that's something, I guess. So anyway, I suppose another thing I should probably explain about this as well is that, well, honestly, that there are some games I haven't exactly touched upon for quite some time that, well, aside from the fact that I haven't gone back into Tears of the Kingdom just yet, because obviously about the fact that Sonic is busy playing on Sonic Frontiers at the moment on the PlayStation 4 version. And in addition to that though, is about the fact that I need to get a lot of practice on the forms of the upcoming fights until eventually, even especially noticeable that I'm still basically on to the next dungeon. So as a result of that kind of stuff though, it does take me some bit of practice to be able to exactly know the layout. In addition to that though, is about the fact that I basically already spent about 20 or so hours on The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom so far. Which, don't get me wrong, it is not a bad start, but it's just about the fact that sometimes I do need to take a break on occasional moments, in case if I, well, imagine this, right, if I felt a bit, you know, a tad sweaty, and then as a result, I need to, like, take a sunbathing or something like that, in case if I worn out and stuff like that, after playing that game for so many hours. Well, don't get me wrong, I still enjoy it still, but as a result, I do need to break occasionally, so even then though, that might be saying something, I guess. So, when it comes to, like, playing open and, you know, quite an expansive games sometimes, but because of that though, it just takes me a bit of some time to able to just chill and relax and stuff like that while going for this entire stressful moments occasionally, but either way though, that's all I can really think about it, so. But again though, I apologize if my comment take is a bit slightly iffy at this point today, because honestly, aside from the fact that I've already mentioned about the fact that with those brief stuff worth noting for, but honestly, I think that's as far as I can say about it, sadly, because obviously that, again, I'll let Sonic were able to mention more about it during the course of the Forms of Sonic Frontiers playthrough, because as far as I'm aware, that he basically knows exactly what to expect to come. So, but either way, that's all I can really think about it, so. Anywho though, oh yeah, I should also mention about this as well, is that I can't even believe it's been about 9 years ago since Mario Party 10 has first announced, back in 2014 in Nintendo's E3 2014 as far as this is concerned. So either way though, despite how a lot of people seem to able to think that is definitely the weakest announcements to have, because of that continues that particular gameplay style based off from Mario Party 9, and as a result of that kind of stuff though, that's all I can really think about it, so. But I digress. So, yeah, recently, as far as I found out something, is about the fact that one of those upcoming films, specifically until in 2024, that one of those films, I was going to mention this anyway, is called Captain America, like the new Captain America film. Apparently, though, is that they're getting a name change. So as a result, it originally did say, Captain America New World Order, but as a result, it did change into Captain America Brave New World instead of the forms of New World Order, because, I don't know, something about the original title for it just seems a bit, I don't know, messed up for that particular subtitle. So, at the very least, with that change of name, work for the better, just because of more understanding about the fact that how that film is going to take place or somewhat. So, yeah, I'm guessing that might be seems the case when it comes to likely alternating between different titles of certain films as far as this is concerned, so. But, I'm still curious to check it out though, although, mind you, we're still on the forms of, the slight beginning portion of, you know, Phase 5 as far as this is concerned, so, but either way though, because I can assure you, the next one coming up, in terms of the forms of the film theatrical releases, in terms of the forms of Phase 5, that's what appears to be the Marvels, so obviously that film is going to be releasing at some point on 10th of November, but either way though, it can take a pretty long timetable to get that film's release, but I'm sure it'll take a lot of timetable to get that film to be released or somewhat, so. But I digress. So, there's another thing I should probably explain about this as well. That recently, that CapKing74, he's now onto the Moon section in terms of the forms of, you know, Chapter 7 so far in Paper Mario The Thousand Year Door, and he did somehow manage able to go into X-Nord's Fortress now. So because of that though, yeah, he's actually getting a lot more progressioning for the sake of time. Although mind you about the fact that he's basically almost finishing up in terms of the forms of Paper Mario The Thousand Year Door. God knows what's the next game he's going to be tackling through, but I'm sure we're able to find out and, well, just find out exponentially. So, again, there's not much else I can say about this personally, because either way though, that's all I can really discuss upon in terms of the forms of, you know, game announcements and anything else like that. So, well, apart from one particular thing in mind, that, as I said before, it's been about 9 years ago since when Nintendo first announced Mario Party 10, despite with mixed results. But as a result, I remember back in the day that I was sort of skeptical about it, especially noticeable because it plays pretty much like Mario Party 9, but on HD console, to be more specifically on the Wii U. But I will admit though, still the highlight of Mario Party 10, despite how unbalanced it was, that's what appears to be the Bowser Party, which is the actual cool introduction to that point. But aside from all that stuff though, yeah, I can totally see why it's kind of hard to get back into Mario Party 10 these days now, because still, we got ourselves the superior Mario Party superstars with the forms of online play and stuff like that, despite we do have less playable characters, like 10 playable characters, as opposed to, well, let's just say, like, I don't know, 30 or somewhat, because obviously, if it does manage to contain 30 playable characters, that will be the true ultimate Mario Party experience, but it might be a bit too late for this point right now, especially noticeable because, well, they're working on something else, so understandably so, especially noticeable about the fact that we still have no idea when does the DLC is going to be in existence for Mario Party Superstars. I know we've been on about that, especially noticeable about the fact that it's been about almost 2 years ago since when Mario Party Superstars was first announced during the course of an E3 2021 Nintendo Direct, and, you know, still, whenever I look back on that particular Nintendo Direct, it is without doubt one of the greatest Directs, in my opinion, back in 2021, that is. Especially not only does it bring back, you know, Mario Party days of old, but also it brings back Super Monkey Ball within the good old days, but with weird physics and momentum, and as well as the art style, and in addition to able to bring, you know, the next installment of the WarioWare game, in addition to that with the forms of, let's just say the new Metroid game, which turns out to be Metroid Dread, and the new trailer for The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. Well, it originally did say The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild 2 at first glance, but then until 2022, they showed us the final title of the game, so yeah, you probably get the idea about that. It's especially noticeable about the fact that, you know what I mean about the fact that it did give us a tentatively title at first glance, but then eventually it just somehow finalized the title, and during at some point in later years and months to come. So yeah, you get the idea about that. Oh, and another thing about the fact that I'm pretty sure until next week that Crash Team Rumble is going to be releasing on the PlayStation 4, as well as PlayStation 5 and Xbox One and Xbox Series X. And I can assure you PC as well. Well, I may be wrong, because it's been quite some time since I actually last seen some gameplay footage of Crash Team Rumble. That's just because, unfortunately though, we have no idea when is it going to be releasing on the Switch. Because I think something tells me about the fact that I might be worried about the fact that it will not come onto the Nintendo Switch version, just because obviously the Switch is almost getting closer to its lifespan for the sake of the forms of this ending lifespan before they moved on to the forms of the next generation of consoles for Nintendo, or to be more specifically, the 9th generation system for Nintendo. But I'm sure we're able to actually find out some more details about that at some point in the future, but either way, that's saying something, so. By the way, with the Funhouse World, it does kind of reminds me of a similar vibe as in the forms of Circus Park from Shadow the Hedgehog, although except the fact that we don't have to use guns as weapons, so yeah, I obviously have no idea why I explain any of these specific stuff though, but either way. Oh yeah, there's also another thing I should probably explain about this as well, I guess, is, I think, relatively speaking though, that, honestly, oh yeah, we've got, the next, Marvel series of series, as far as what I was gonna say for this point, and potentially speaking though, we actually got ourselves the actual official release date for not only Secret Invasion, which obviously is going to be releasing at some point in about just roughly 8 days from now, so I'm curious to check it out, and also we've got ourselves a release date for the second season for Loki. Now, as a result, it's going to be releasing at some point on the 6th of October, so I'm very excited able to check out the second season of Loki, so. And as far as Echo is concerned, I'm pretty sure it's going to be releasing at some point on the 29th of November, during, of course, in 2023. So as far as everything else is concerned, when it comes to, like, some series for that matter, we have no idea when this What If Season 2 is going to be releasing, but I'm guessing it's going to be either next year or this year, depending on the forms of scheduled timing, so that might be the reason for it, I guess, so the next thing I want to mention, though, is that apparently, though, Diesel in June 2023, they did say about the fact that the sequel to Fast X is going to be releasing it during at some point on April the 4th, 2025. Jeez, I have to wait for another 2 years. Jeez, why is it every single Fast and Furious movies always get a 2-year gap of releases? So, well, apart from quite a few film exceptions, mind you, so it seems, you know, very weird able to actually get ourselves a 2-year gap releases during that time, so I obviously have no words to think about it, so Anyway, though, the next thing I want to mention is that apparently, though, there's a game called Buddy Simulator 1984. Apparently, it's gonna get ourselves a physical release for the likes of the forms of not only on the Switch, but also on the PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5, and possibly the Xbox One/Xbox Series X for that matter. Well, mind you, I haven't exactly paid attention to that game either, just because, well, I'm sort of not able to just address that particular mentioning, so... Anyway though, so here we go on to this next maze right here. So, as we expected, about the fact that we do need to avoid a lot of ghosts, and on top of that, there's actually that particular smashed compactor thingy right there, which is kind of hard to explain, because again, as I said before, it's been about 5 days ago since I played this game, because obviously about the fact that I'm sure enough that Mario and Luigi are basically getting very close towards the end of challenge mode, believe it or not, before they moved on to side content, because I'm sure enough that, much like Mario Slime Basketball, I'm pretty sure that particular playthrough is going to be super duper short, especially noticeable because concerning it is a sports title, because I almost assume about the fact that it'll take a little bit longer, because obviously with all that continuous matches and stuff like that, as well as mission structure, but as it turns out that Mario and Luigi have managed able to breezily win through that so far, especially concerning with all that, you know, easier times or just anything else in general. So anyways, the next thing I want to mention is that apparently though, I was so surprised that Sonic has totally forgot to mention about that basically Merged Games and Motion Twin has recently revealed there's going to be a physical and special editions of Dead Cells Return to Castlevania, and that's going to be releasing at some point on the 11th of August in 2023 as it is. So as a result, it'll contain some gem pack full of content here and there for the actual special edition or something like that, or a signature edition. Like, for instance, it will obviously include the game itself, obviously, in addition to the forms of the retro reversible cover, which I think is actually pretty cool, similar to the forms of how it does it from the likes of not only Sonic Mania Plus, but eventually at some point in the next couple of days' time, to be more specifically 10 days for now, for the likes of Sonic Origins Plus. So as a result, that it does manage to contain a familiar box art style based off from the good old Castlevania games from the NES type of stuff. So in addition to that, they also managed able to include the signature edition out of sleeves or something like that, and also able to include exclusive art book, as well as 5 snapshot photo souvenirs of the beheaded in Castlevania. In addition to that, there also includes the special edition collector's box. And in addition to that, there's also 4 Dead Cells Return to Castlevania postcards featuring printed signatures, and especially noticeable with the forms of Leniency Castle card, and especially noticeable with the forms of a collection of 4 enamel pins, as far as I'm aware. And finally, or potentially speaking, and finally, as far as what I was going to say, it actually includes a soundtrack CD, which as a result, it does manage to contain alternative disc soundtrack featuring 28 original Castlevania tunes, and just reimagining on the Dead Cells style. So yeah, it seems kind of interesting with that particular collector's item as far as this is concerned. But then again though, it's going to be releasing at some point in August. So I've known why I say at some point twice, because I think I already mentioned about that particular date anyway, so oh well, no big deal. Now I suppose the next thing I want to mention is that apparently though, the review scores in Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse is without a doubt is the highest score so far, from not only for any movies in 2023 so far, but also with from how the fact that it's one of the highest rated movies from the superhero movies as far as I'm concerned, which I'll admit though, I agree with that, especially noticeable because obviously with the impressive visual style. In addition to that though, it's about the fact that it's nice to see Miles Morales in the actual film in action again ever since in 2018, so And as far as the other film is concerned, Transformers Rise of the Beasts, so far it did receive a bit of a lower score so far, to be more specifically 53% from critics, but for some reason, for audiences' scores, did receive the film as a 91%, so I've honestly have no idea why. They do manage to have themselves a lot of comparisons between critics as well as audience fans alike. But as far as I'm aware about the fact that between both critics and audience's score for the likes of Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse is actually, you know, very identical score, which I will say it was, you know, super duper impressive as far as this is concerned. So, but either way, yeah, as far as I'm aware, like I said before about the fact that the next new character is actually introduced, for the sake of the forms of, you know, the Sonic Superstars, that it did say about the fact that it's more likely like the name is Trip, which I thought was a little bit of a lame character's name, because obviously I just wish that there was something like unique in that respect. Although I might be biased, I guess, which I've honestly have no idea what I was trying to able to explain any of these specific stuff at the moment. But either way, we did somehow manage able to complete the third stage in Funhouse World. So at the very least though, that despite we did occasionally die at one point, just because of this unexpected obstacles that we did somehow manage to keep on dying for. So either way though, but just as odd though, that's what trial and error comes into play, I'm afraid. So but either way though, now I think something tells me about the fact that I think, well as I said before, that we've only got 10 more days to go until you know, Sonic Origins Plus will be expecting to be releasing. In addition to that, about the fact that, yeah, unfortunately though, we've only got 17 days to go until everybody wants to Switch is going to be releasing. So, but again, I'm going to skip that game completely because I just think it's unnecessary to me, especially because about the fact that I'm not a big fan of the forms of, want to Switch duology games basically, because there's not much depth to it. In addition to that, for what I've noticed, there's a lack of personality when it comes to the forms of the visual styles alike. Well, I could possibly understand it would be fun for everyone, but I'm not one of them, sadly, because obviously I just think it's kind of pointless, so... Anyways, let's move on to the last level in a Funhouse World, and in this one appears to be Clown Prix, and potentially speaking, unlike the forms of how it does in the original version of this level, that basically about the fact that we start the race immediately in the original version, whilst in this version this time around, we can able to do a bit of a practicing for once. Especially noticeable just to get used to how the driving mechanics work, especially noticeable we're about to once again compete against with those abundance of clown racers, so either way though, except with a different perspective this time around, so that'll be interesting all things considered, so... And you can also use that particular dash power-up if you decided to, so... So yeah, the main objective of this particular Grand Prix, as far as this is concerned, remains the same as the original, except, as you can see, we're getting into a different camera perspective, like we go into a first-person view, so as a result, you can able to actually see what's coming in the actual track, which as a result, is definitely a lot easier than the forms of how it does on this very, schizophrenic difficulty in the original version, because it's almost like top-down perspective, while you're trying to able to guess which one of those curves you have to able to get utilized with it. So basically, as I said before, the main objective remains the same. Like, you still need to aim for first place in order to able to advance, because obviously if you get into second or lower, then you can't able to progress, so you have to keep trying again. In addition to that, I believe if you dare manage to fall off the track, I'm pretty sure it takes you back where you came from, so as a result, at least there's no extreme penalty for doing it. So as a result, yeah, every once in a while there's going to be a lot of power pellets, so just in case you can able to knock over those racers as much as you want. So as a result, if you really want to get the achievement, or trophy for that matter, basically you have to beat this particular race in a certain amount of time, To be more specifically, you need to beat it for about 140 seconds or less. So as a result for that kind of stuff, though, honestly, this boss fight is actually pretty cool, despite the fact there's no need able to fight anything, because obviously it takes place in a race after all. So, and every once in a while you come across into a point about the fact that, as you can tell, that, as I said before, you can able to utilize that particular dash ability if you want able to use that, because obviously you can able to give you a bit of a burst of speed. So even then though, the only thing you need to watch out for is, of course, falling off the course, and especially noticeable if you dare touch the bombs. If assuming, of course, if you didn't have the power pellets for you, basically though, you're gonna get hit. So either way though, that's something you need to classify for noticing this. And this was also where the point where about the fact that unfortunately, and during at some point on the 5th world, and especially noticeable on the 6th world for this game, it will be divided into separate parts, I'm afraid to tell you for this point, especially because for what I've understand about the fact that the 5th world and the final world might be considered to be one of the longest worlds in the game, because obviously it might take me a bit of some time to able to proceed to certain parts throughout the world, and especially noticeable just trying to go through tons of obstacles that we do need to classify for trying to able to avoid that particular stuff. So but either way, and I suppose that pretty much takes care of the forms of Clown Grand Prix as far as this is concerned. So of course we were able to expect to give us some tons of items here and there. So potentially speaking of, that basically takes care of the rest of the forms of the Funhouse. So yeah, that's about it basically. So either way, so hopefully we're able to get ourselves some more extra lives potentially, because I'm pretty sure that we've almost right near to well, we're not exactly nearest to 100 lives potentially, but I'm sure we're able to actually get even more extra lives at some point in the next couple of worlds, or to be more specifically, the final 2 worlds in the game, which there are the Factory World alongside with the forms of the Mansion Manor World. So, but either way though, that's what I can really think about it. So, again, I would have liked able to discuss more details for this point today, but I think it's probably best that we'll let Sonic be able to mention more details instead, because obviously about the fact that he was going to be continuing experiencing the second island for Sonic Frontiers. So, but I'm sure enough, he's still had a lot of fun with the game so far, especially concerning with all that particular stuff in mind. So, but I digress. So we did somehow rescue ourselves baby Pac-Man ever since on the 3rd level in the Funhouse World. So we only got 2 friends left, which there are Pac-Man Jr. or Junior Pac-Man, as well as Pac-Mom instead of Miss Pac-Man, unlike the original version. So still have no idea why they come up with the idea with that replacement. So anyway, so suffice to say, I think we should probably end things off this point right here. So join me next time for more of Let's Play of Pac-Man World Re-Pac. That is that we're about to be experiencing the 5th world in the game, which as I said before, but appears to be the Factory World. So yeah, it might be felt a bit lengthy in some cases. So I'll see you guys until on Thursday. Later, fellas.